were some part of something bigger and larger than themselves. So what happened to them was that they started to create meaning for themselves. Second one says they became narcissistic. And he says, anybody who turns to simply creating meaning for oneself is going to end up a very, very depressed person. So this question about meaning and purpose is not going to go away. It will haunt you to the day that you die. So whether you think that this question of meaning and purpose, in principle, cannot be answered, or has no answer, or you decide not to engage in it, it will catch up with you sooner or later. So then how does modern man cope? How does modern man cope with this situation that he has created? How does he cope? You see, what we have to understand is that our situation, man's situation, is very unique. You see, up until the 15th century, it was intellectually and culturally inconceivable not to believe in God. God absolutely defined all aspects of reality. When man looked at the world and he wanted to find out a solution to a problem, God was in the background. It defined the reality which one lived. But now, what do we have? After the 15th century or so, with the movement of the Enlightenment, God was seen as a repression. Modern man saw God as repressing him. He wanted to free himself from God and religion, the shackles of religion. He wanted God to leave his life. But look at the situation that we have now. Despite people's attempts to answer away the longings of the heart for something beyond themselves, the transcendence is inescapable, absolutely inescapable. If you're going to take something from this meeting today, just one thing, what I'd ask you to do is take this. That if you do not have God in your life, something else will fill that void and become God. Something else will take that place. For most people, materialism is a form of spirituality. They don't worship in the temple. They don't worship in the synagogue. They don't worship in the church. They don't worship in the mosque, but they worship in the mall. The shopping centres. The shopping centres. They celebrate festivals of consumption. Some call it Christmas. Armed with your talisman, the credit card, you feel happy. Why? Because you authenticated your existence by buying more stuff. The advertising agencies have worked this out a long time ago. They know exactly how to manipulate us. They've developed powerful ways of adding meaning to goods. Advertising, branding, packaging, fashion, and the like. They worked out a long time ago that when people buy things, they're not buying things. They want to buy meaning. Buy this and achieve happiness. Buy this and achieve greatness. Buy this and you'll be accepted. Roger Rosenblatt, in the book Consuming Desires, captures this precisely. Listen to these words. He says, to have and not to have, that is the essence of consumerism in America and the engine of Western capitalism. To experience a moment when acquisition of stuff brings you an epiphany of sobbing. Because its very being and the act of acquiring itself reminds you of the stuff you do not have or do not have yet. The thrill of the present drags you into the want of the past and then propels you into prayers of the future. The stuff is there and not there. Not bad for sociologists. Do you see what he's saying here? He's capturing the almost religious component of consumerism. And this is how we cope in the modern world. This is how we cope. We fall for the consumer lie, the pseudo-salvation, as a form of distraction. How modern man deals with this? He develops techniques to distract himself from the yearning of something greater than himself, transcendence. But this won't do, my friends, because we know deep down there is no substance in things. How many of us have been in that situation where we desire to buy the next handbag? And judging by the audience, probably a few here. the next suit or the next technology, the iPad or whatever it is, the next new car. How many of us have craved for these products? And then when we bought it, when we had it in our possessions, what happened? The desire withered away. The novelty just wore off. And then we start looking at the next thing, the next bag. My wife has this thing with bags. She says, I've seen a great bag. And I say, but you've got some. That doesn't work with women. I don't know why. You can never have enough bags. But it won't do. It won't do. This won't be. You will not be successful to sort out this yearning. Look, has anyone seen the film Scarface? Put your hands up who've seen Scarface. Okay, right. I'd recommend that people watch this film. Now, many people that have watched this film, sorry to spoil the ending here, but for those that haven't seen it, many people that watch this film think that the climax of the film is at the end, where he gets out his machine gun and says hello to my little friend and starts machine gunning everybody. But that's not the climax. The climax happened halfway through the film. And for those that haven't seen it, it's played by, what's his face? Al Pacino, yes, of course, Al Pacino, and the character is Tony Montana. And this character is from Puerto Rico and very poor, and then he's trying to get into the US, and he's at the immigration point, and he says, "You've got to let me through. You've got to let me through. I had such a poor life. I've been eating squid for God knows how many years. I just want to, go there, go to America, work hard, and earn some money." So they feel sorry for him and let him in. And what happens? He starts working the streets. He joins a gang. He makes a name for himself. Starts getting involved with drugs, and becomes number 2 to the mafia boss. And to the point, what happens is that he becomes so powerful, so well known, that he then takes the mafia boss's position by shooting him, sort of normal for gangsters, and also normal protocol in that sort of, that kind of world. And he always had his eye on his wife, who he adored secretly, kills the boss, marries his widow, and then he has everything beyond his wildest dreams. Every single thing. He is the head honcho now. And in halfway through the film, he's sitting in the restaurant, in this plush restaurant, the sort of thing where you have to take ridiculous amounts of money. He has his friend opposite him, they're having this meal. The woman that he always wanted is there, and he sits there with his cigar. And he says those famous words. He says, "Is this it?" He says, "Is this it?" It wasn't what it was meant out to be. It was overhyped. And that is the climax of that film, not the end. That is it. A lot of people miss that. Lots of people miss that. Oscar Wilde said there are 2 tragedies in life. 2. Not getting what you want, and then getting it. So true. So true. The libraries are full of testimonies, stories and confessions of people that thought that having it all is not all. Clearly, that for us to pin our hopes on the material, it's like pinning our hopes on nothing. Absolute thin air. What happened to that thing? Drop. Now, this is why God says in the Quran, He says, "For the life of this world is nothing but an enjoyment of self-delusion." Self-delusion. There is nothing that is going to quench that thirst for the transcendence. Absolutely nothing. Psychologists and sociologists are discovering now the pain of boredom in our lives. The sheer boredom of our lives. We have so much at our disposal. More than any other generation. So much to distract us. So much to entertain us. But yet, it is simply not enough. Not enough blood, not enough violence, not enough sex, not enough drugs, not enough. Not enough. Not enough violence in our lives. What is this talk about religion bringing violence to the world? It is the cause of all religion. Modern man has killed God in his life, took away religion in his life. But violence is alive and kicking. We have children I'm talking about children playing computer games where the objective is to kill innocent people indiscriminately. To go on to the next stage. To beat up prostitutes. To take their money. These are the games that our children are playing, and then we scratch our heads and think, why is it that the youth is so violent these days? How ridiculous. How ridiculous. That's why in the US you hear stories of people ordering pizzas and then shooting the pizza delivery man just for the heck of it. It just felt like it. Then we wonder, violence is alive and kicking. We may have got rid of God and religion, but violence is alive and kicking in our society. Not enough sex. Perversions beyond comprehension. Don't let me start. Honestly. Loses all sense of the meaning of sex. Honestly. You just can't begin to fathom what people get up to. Not enough drugs. Modern man. Man, what does he do? He tries to escape. Escape the boredom by what? What does he do? The boredom of an era without transcendence. What does he do? By taking drugs, cocktails of drugs, trance-induced music, rave parties. Is this a new culture? Some people describe this as, this is just culture. It's not culture, this is escapism. That's what this is. Let's be honest about this. This is a counter-reality, because he cannot take life anymore. He wants to escape this world. That is a fact. This is why we want to get out of this world, because we just cannot take it anymore. But even with that, it's still not enough. With all the cocktails of drugs, there is not enough stimuli on this earth to make us happy. People are so spiritually dead, emotionally dead, that they seek the extremes in any shape or form. Why? They want to reactivate life within them. They want something to trigger that life. They've lost the link between the true nature of their existence. That's why the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, he said, the difference between the one who remembers God and does not remember God is like the difference between the living and the dead. The living and the dead. So this alternative religion, materialism, is simply not enough. People want more. Man needs a narrative. Even if he doesn't have God, he needs narratives. He needs a story. He needs a journey. He needs a guide. If he kills God in his life, if he kills the narrative, he'll recreate one. That's a fact. Man just can't live on bread and water. Consumerism is failing, and we know that. Why? Because what we have when we look at the world, we see a hunger for spirituality. A hunger for spirituality. And this works. This works, my friends. This works as a patchwork system. In a world that's defined by the material, because it cannot cater for man's needs, it works as a patchwork. It works as a patchwork system. I always do that. I always do that. It works as a patchwork system. Why? Go to the bookstores and you will find a number of books, plethora of books on New Age religions. Crystals, psychics, tarot cards. Paganism is back. What a tragedy. We have monotheism that came to the earth to take people out of the archaic beliefs. And we kill God in our lives, and then we come all the way around again to paganism. But again, this alternative won't do either. Why? Because to invent meaning is an enterprise of self-delusion. To consciously invent meaning in our lives is an enterprise of self-delusion. If God does not exist, and life is meaningless and purposeless, then just attaching meaning to something is inconsistent, and life of fooling ourselves. David J. Levinson, in The Seasons of Man's Life, he says this: as he attempts to repraise his life, a man discovers how much is based on illusion, and he's faced with the task of disillusionment. By this expression, I mean a reduction of illusion to recognition of long-held assumptions and beliefs about self and the world are not true. The process merits special attention because illusion plays so vital a role in our lives throughout the life cycle.